Hi guys, welcome back to another video where we go through and we get some behind the scenes details on the life of a professional footballer. I'm here today with former pro manager and now personal trainer, Ivor Lawton. Ivor, thank you for helping me out today.
Good intro. Thanks, mate. How you doing? You all right?
So just a start off question, bit of a broad one, but when did you first realise that you wanted to take football seriously and pursue it as like a full-time career sort of thing?
Straight into it, aren't we? I think obviously football was always number one for me growing up. My dad was a good footballer back in the day, and that's the way I was sort of brought up. But I think when I started taking it seriously, I would say probably around sort of 13, 14 years old. Because when you're growing up, when you're sporty, you do a lot of other activities. You do running, other sports like tennis and stuff. But I got to that stage where you train a lot more at sort of 13, 14, and you start to take it a bit more seriously. Um, so I'd say, yeah, 13, 14 years old was when I was seeing, like, this is what I want to do now. So let's put all my focus into this.
Yeah. And then similar question to that, I suppose it's probably around that age, but what do you remember about getting scouted by Coventry?
I do remember I was up Mountain on Holloway in Coventry down Ponderosa. So me
Mhm.
and my good friend Ryan Quinn, we had interest straight away from all like the Midlands clubs. So like Birmingham, Leicester, Villa, all coming for us. But for us, we were 6, 7 years old at the time, but it was always Coventry. There was no other club in mind. That was at a time as well. I'm getting a bit older now, but that was when Coventry had just been relegated from the Premiership as well.
Mhm.
So, Coventry was always the one for us. There was no other club in mind.
Mhm. So that's how it feels as a local lad, obviously, when you get that chance from Coventry, you gotta take it.
Yeah, you got that attachment to it, haven't you? Your
Yeah.
family are all Cov fans and stuff,
Mhm.
so it's just, yeah, it meant the world to us being scouted, and obviously, we were there pretty much majority of our lives, which is,
Mm.
brilliant.
Yeah. And then, to be fair, this one's a bit because I can kind of see this in my own school with like the academy players, but like with growing up as an academy player, did you feel like you were maybe treated differently at school, maybe kind of put on a bit of a pedestal almost in a way?
That's a good question. I'd say in certain aspects, yeah. I mean,
Mm.
so when I was in well, I used to always play above my age group, so I used to play a year and 2 years above.
Mm.
So in year nine, I started having a thing called day release. So you'd have a day off school every week to go and play football, and that started even earlier for myself because I was playing up the year groups. So
Mm.
maybe had a little bit of, let's say, special treatment there, but
Yeah.
I had to get my own private tutors and stuff as well. So I made sure I did all the work, to make
Mm.
up for it. So it was quite even a stressful time, even as a kid. I would say you don't really get any special treatment in terms of the teachers. I think if anything, they're probably more on you to make sure you behave and you're doing things
Mm.
right, which is rightly so. The only thing I would say is I think when you play against other schools and stuff, the football games, I think
Mm.
people would target you a little bit more in
Yeah.
terms of they might try and, tackle you or be a bit more physical because they know who you are and where you're playing.
Mm.
But I always enjoyed that, so that was fine.
Yeah. And then what was the obviously sticking on the academy topic, what was the process with your scholarships and your pro contracts? Obviously, that's probably quite a stressful process, but what are like the kind of ins and outs of that process from what you can remember?
So a bit different for me, Ryan, to be fair. So I saw my scholarship and professional contract at the same time when I was
Mhm.
15. Again, going back to why I had to leave school early because I think they rated me essentially, so they wanted me to escalate things a bit earlier. So with most lads, they get to 60 and they get their 2 year scholarship. But for me, I got my scholarship in first year pro when I was 15. So it wasn't a stressful process. The only thing I would say, it wasn't. I remember signing my pro contract. Probably the best thing I ever done, mate. Was absolutely brilliant. But I was took into a little room at the Rico, and it was just some lady there, and I just signed my contract, and that was it. It
Mhm.
wasn't really a big thing, so it was a bit of a yeah, it wasn't the best experience actually signing it, but to get my professional contract at that age was brilliant. And
Mhm.
I deserved it as well. I put in the hard work,
Yeah.
and it wasn't stressful at all. Because obviously I already had it for myself, but for other lads when they're to put it into context, how it usually works is we're pretty much all in the change room downstairs, and people be going for their meetings and stuff, and you find out straight after if they've got their scholarship or not. And
Mm,
it's you can imagine for the lads that haven't got it, it's not a nice experience for them,
mm, yeah.
So yeah.
So were you told about it in advance, or were you just kind of took into a room and gone like, oh, we want to give you a pro contract?
Basically had a meeting booked in.
Mm.
Yeah, but it's strange though, because I remember, because again, to give you a bit more context, so you know when you have work experience in year 10, I don't know if you still do that at school,
I think some
but
schools do. Yeah.
yeah, so we had work experience, and typically, people will go into offices or to a warehouse, whatever.
Mm,
And I remember I just knocked on the academy manager's door, Gregor Rioch at the time, and I said I want to do my work experience with the 18s,
mm,
and I just thought I'd be like the guy, running around filling up the water bottles, putting out the cones and stuff.
mm,
And they said no, you're training. I think they liked the fact that I did it, so I joined them in training for 2 weeks. I was there, and I was doing really well. So I'm playing against lads that are like, 3, 4 years older than me.
yeah.
I was holding my own, but not even holding my own. I was probably going beyond that. So I
Mm,
think after that, they were like, okay, we've got a bit of a player on our hands here.
yeah.
And that's maybe what escalated the process for me. And then I remember
Mm,
the manager at the time was actually Andy Thorne. He come to watch me in an 18s game when I was playing again. I was playing up, and first 15 minutes, I hadn't had a kick of the ball at all. I was getting really frustrated. And I
mm.
remember just got the ball out my feet from about 30 yards, had a shot and top corner. But it's just that little bit of luck. Do you know what I
Yeah, that's
mean?
one way to impress. Yeah.
It's just right time, right place, and it all worked out well for me at the time. So
Mm,
yeah.
yeah. And then moving on to obviously you've spoke briefly about going up in the age groups and getting a new environment. How do you integrate yourself into a first team environment? Obviously you're a younger player, you're going in with more experienced players, maybe somewhere like 10, 15 years older than you. How would you integrate yourself into a new environment like that?
I think first of all you got to make sure you got the right attitude, and get
Mm,
respect off the senior pros. So again, when we were younger, you go out and clean the first team players' boots to start with. That's how you start to get that sort of respect. You do a good job for them, be around the place. You can be a little bit cheeky, but in the right way. Crack a bit of
mhm,
banter here and there. But if
mm,
they know you're a good lad, you'll always get their respect. And then I
yeah.
think beyond that, it's just having confidence in your own ability.
Mm,
So when you step out onto the pitch, you're thinking, okay, I deserve to be here. I remember when I saw my first pro contract, my dad summarised it perfectly for me. He said, "Look, you've come off the small ladder. Now you're at the start of the big ladder. So you got into the first team. This is a start for you at the big ladder. Make
mhm,
sure you climb that ladder." And that's exactly what I tried to do. So.
yeah. So that's a quite a so if you work hard and have the right mindset, it's not as difficult as a process as what it could be. Is that what you're saying?
Just got to be confident in your own
Mm,
ability. Yeah, it can be a little bit daunting going into like a brand new changing room,
mhm,
and that's anywhere. If you go on trial at different places and you step into a change room of, 20, 20 men that you never met before, you don't know what they're like, etc. It can
mm,
be difficult, but you just got to get your head down, work hard, show your ability, and
yeah.
then you'll get the respect of the dressing room.
Mhm. And then sticking on this sort of time zone, but towards the start of your career, you had a brief loan spell at Nuneaton Town. What's that experience like? Again, it's similar to the integration question, but getting sent out on loan just as an experience in general. What's that like?
I hated it.
Mm,
Absolutely hated it. The reason I hated it, Nuneaton's a great club, first of all. A lot of respect from Nuneaton, obviously close to home for ourselves.
mm-hmm,
It's just, it wasn't. I was playing centre midfield at the time in the 21s, and the main reason was to go and get experience playing for Nuneaton in midfield. I
mm,
got there and it started playing me right back, and straight
yeah,
away it was just, what's going on here? They
mm,
came to watch me as a centre midfielder. They liked me, and then they signed me for a month, and now they pay me right back. It just didn't make any sense to me at
yeah,
all. And also, not non-league was different than what I liked. So non-leagues, great players in non-league, but the mindset is a little bit different in terms of lads probably got
mm,
drinking after games and stuff like that. I
yeah,
love the whole dedication
mm,
towards the full-time career. I loved
mm,
living my life like an athlete. Um, and yeah, it just wasn't a good experience for me. But playing men's football, I would always advise lads to go and play men's football. Just make sure it's the right move for them.
yeah,
I
mhm,
probably jumped into it. Um, I wouldn't say naively, because it was all lined up. I had some conversations, but yeah, it didn't quite really work out for me. So it wasn't the best of experience.
mm. you said you had some conversations. So did you ask to go out on loan, or were you kind of told we have these potential suitors for you to go out on loan? Did you have much of a say in it, or were you just kind of shipped off on loan for a month?
Yeah, I was knocking on the door again because I wasn't getting in the first team at the time. So I was saying, well, look, I want to get men's football. I want to get the
Hmm.
experience. I got advice from some of the senior pros at Coventry, and they said, yeah, go and get men's football, because it is a big shift in 21's football where it's probably more about how you're performing, possession, playing the right way. You go to men's football when there's 3 points on the line, it's about winning, so it is
Mm,
a different environment completely. So it's a good experience from that point of view, but just not for me personally, because obviously the position I was playing. Um, but yeah, obviously I had some conversations internally at Coventry, and I was knocking on the door saying, "Well, I want to go and do this,"
yeah.
and obviously I wanted to come back and use that experience to get into the first team.
Mm. This is a bit of an off-topic question, but just because you mentioned some senior players, just kind of sprung to mind. Over your career, who's the best player that you played with and against, just purely out of interest?
Or on the spot there, played with is easy. John Fleck,
Yeah,
John
uh,
Fleck,
he
hundred
was
percent.
my very first favorite football player, John Fleck. My very
John Fleck,
first ever favorite player.
he was. If you were on his team in training, you'd win. Put it like
Mm,
that. He was
yeah.
like he was like he was like Scholes. Do you know what I mean? He
Mm,
controlled everything, and even for like a small lad, he was strong as anything. Getting the ball off him was difficult. He was unbelievable. Just controlled and dictated everything. And obviously because I trained with him so much as well, I saw it day in day out. And he probably
mm,
wasn't even at his fittest at Coventry as well.
yeah.
He was a lot fitter when he had the move to Sheffield United. Yeah, but John Fleck was 100% the best player I played with. Against one that sticks out is Troy Deeney,
Yeah.
just because I marked him in pre-season. So we played
Hmm.
Watford. I think it was at Boreham Wood, their ground at the time. So we played Watford in pre-season game, but I was playing centre half. And one of my biggest strengths when I was a footballer was sort of reading the game. I could make a lot of interceptions and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And I went to try and get around him to intercept the ball. And he just put his arm out. And when you get winded, it's like doof.
Yeah.
I was like, shit, like that. And he was just saying, not today, son. You're not moving.
Yeah.
So it was, even though he wasn't like the quickest player in the world, and he was just a handful, and it was just, he
Mm,
was really good at what he did. So I remember
yeah.
that was a difficult task. So he's definitely up there.
As we were talking now, I was just checking the wall to just check, and John Fleck is on there. A little portrait signed photo of John Fleck from years ago. Got
Yeah,
that team. You're on there. Madders is on there. Nuble's on there. Jim O'Brien's on there.
yeah,
So I
yeah,
think it was one of them like Christmas days. I went around with loads of photos asking people to sign him.
yeah.
Um, and then just moving on to your debut. So what do you remember about your debut? Obviously, it's not the best question. It's a bit of an obvious answer, but like, how did it feel? How do you prepare yourself when you're told you're coming off the bench? Like, what's the kind of mental and also like emotional side of that? I guess because obviously being a Cov lad.
Yeah, so for me, signing my professional contract was the best thing, much bigger than my debut. The reason I say that as well is because when I signed my professional contract, even though I was 15, I thoroughly deserved it.
Mm,
I seen the hard work I was doing, I was performing, and I just I knew something was going to happen because I was doing that well.
mm,
With my debut, it should have come a lot earlier.
mm,
So when I was sort of like 17, 8, well, yeah, 17, 18, I was knocking on the door, doing really well, and it just wasn't happening for me. I wasn't, for whatever reason, wasn't given the chance.
mm,
That's when I should have made my debut. We had a couple of pre-seasons where I was performing really, really well, and then I come to the first game of the season and I wouldn't be in the squad, and I'm thinking, what is
yeah.
going on?
Mm,
So when I made my debut, obviously Tony Murray was in charge at the time, and he really liked me.
mm,
It was still amazing to say, obviously, I represented my hometown club, and that will be with me for the rest of my life.
yeah.
But it just should have come a lot earlier. So it was still a special moment. I remember my granddad was ill at the time in hospital, and I took my debut shirt to go and see him in hospital at the time, and that was an amazing feeling as well. But it just should have come a lot earlier.
Mm,
Um, and then obviously a week later, you know what happens. So it's yeah, from
yeah.
one extreme to the other.
Yeah, just to touch on that, obviously it's a bit of a sensitive topic, but so you had your struggles with like pretty bad with injuries. How do you cope with that? Like obviously both mentally and physically, how are you coping through that stage?
Yeah, so for me, I think the way I played, I was always going to get injured. I was always going to have like knocks and niggles and stuff.
Mm.
But obviously the one after my debut, so a week later, we we're playing Crystal Palace in a reserve game, and that just come into my knee, and yeah, I snapped my ACL, snapped my meniscus, and snapped my medial ligament. So pretty
Mhm.
much all the three main ligaments at the front of your knee. And that like I just never recovered after that physically.
Mhm.
I came back to full fit. Well, I say full fitness. I came back in really good shape. I was in the gym a lot. I still run now. No pain, but my knee just couldn't deal with the trauma, especially
Mhm.
the way I played. So sometimes after training or after games, my knee would just swell up.
Yeah.
Which was it was tough because I did so well in my rehab when I was coming back, and yeah, my legs are really strong even now. It was just especially for me playing centre mid, the jumping, the physicality of it, the twisting and turning. I could play a full 90 minutes now and be fine, but after I'll be limping for 2 or 3 days. And
Yeah.
it just was a continuous cycle, and unfortunately for me, it never settled down.
Mm.
So it was tough. Obviously, you make your debut and then that happens a week later. But
Yeah.
it's life, and you've got to build this resilience in life, and it's led me to do what I'm doing now. My fitness stuff, which I absolutely love, and I'm
Mhm.
you know taking all of my experiences and setbacks and stuff to help people with their day-to-day lives now. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. And then just kind of interest because I see a lot posted about players recovering from their injury. That internal with the club, how do they help you through the recovery process and what sort of things are you put through to do?
My physio, Dave Hart, was brilliant.
Mm.
So Dave Hart now, he was at Coventry for a long time. I don't know how many years, but he was there for a long time, and he's now doing the British judo team. So he's
Yeah.
done really well. But he was amazing, not just even from his knowledge and what like he set out for me in terms of like the recovery process, but also as a person. His man
Mm.
management was brilliant. So he'd see when I'm having a bad day, and he'd just sometimes crack a little bit of banter or whatever. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
just
Mhm.
make me laugh. Stupid
Mm.
things that you need to have.
Yeah.
And I'd say that about a lot of people at Coventry. The chef Dino at the time was brilliant. A really close relationship with him. The kit man Andy Harvey was brilliant.
Mhm.
People like that were in the club, 10, 15, 20 years. You sort of look to them for comfort sometimes.
Mhm.
And they were brilliant. For me, obviously, I didn't leave Coventry on the best of terms because I was promised an extension that I didn't get.
Yeah.
But at the time, Tony Mowbray was the manager, and then obviously he left by that point. So I didn't leave on the best terms, and I wasn't treated the best by the club. But that I understand now as I've got older, that's business as well.
Yeah. Mhm.
It's hard for me as a Cov because I was there from 6, 7 years old until 21 years old.
Mhm.
Spent my whole life there. But as you get older now, you realise it is a business as well.
Yeah.
But I think times have changed a little bit now. I know it's only 9 years, but I think there's a lot more stuff to do with like mental health and things like that with people leave the process. So I like to think it's in a lot better place now when lads are leaving clubs and stuff like that because it's a big thing. It's not easy as well.
Mhm. Yeah. And then so after you left Cov, you had spells at clubs like Hillsborough Town, Stratford Town, and Alvechurch. What was that period of your career like going through those teams?
Yeah, so non-league again. It wasn't really for me again, but it's my knee was still struggling. So
Mm.
I think 2.5 years playing non-league after my injury, and I was trying to battle through it all the time. I was having like cortisone, steroid injections in my knee, trying to set it down a lot. And
Mhm.
I had a meeting with a consultant, and he just said, look, by the time you're early 30s, if you carry on the way you are, you're gonna be walking with a limp for the rest of your life.
Mm.
So I made the decision then to retire. But
Yeah.
the clubs I played for, Hell was in town, especially because I played nearly 100 games there. What a club. Honestly, probably
Mm.
one of the best clubs in non-league. Brilliant. Like, they get a really, really big fan base. And the people there are just absolutely amazing.
Mm.
My dad and my uncle still go to some of their games, just because they loved it when watching me and stuff. And it's a real, real good, real footballing people.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
and obviously I had good spells at Stratford and Alvechurch, but that was, really short. And then obviously I retired from football completely. So.
Yeah. So then after that, you set off on a managerial career. What can you recall about that experience? having that responsibility of taking charge of a team rather than being a player in it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I wouldn't really say I settled. Like, I didn't plan that at all. So I
Mm,
give it a context again. So Coventry United were going through a tough time, and I knew a couple of lads there. So I just said, well, look, like no one was there to take training or anything for them. So I said, look, I'll just come and take training for you,
mm,
and then if I do a couple of games, whatever, until a new manager comes in. Just sort of evolved to me taking care of everything.
yeah.
And I loved it. I loved the management side of things, and I
Mm,
like to think I was good at it as well. But it overtakes when non-league managers it overtakes a lot of things. So for me, it was overtaking everything. Obviously what I'm doing now in the
yeah.
fitness business and stuff, and if I win the lottery tomorrow, I'd be a non-league manager. I'll go straight back into it, but
Mm,
I need to try and focus on other things first and set
yeah.
myself up and look after my family before I like to go back into it. But I loved it, Ryan. Absolutely loved it, and I would like to get back into it again someday. But
Yeah.
yeah, maybe in the future.
Yeah. So then, obviously, you went through your main career change to what you are now. So now you're a successful personal trainer. And what convinced you to make this career path, to make this career change down that path? Like, what was the biggest pull factors of being a personal trainer?
I think just fitness has been a massive part of my life. So I think obviously I've always been an athlete. Even now, I consider myself to be an athlete, even
Yeah.
though I'm probably not. But you got to lead by example, of course. But
Hmm.
even when I was at Coventry, I was doing my rehab for my knee. I saw how my body was changing, like my muscles, my leg, throughout the recovery process. And I think that's when I really fell in love with it. I was
Hmm.
like, yeah, it was like an addiction for me. I was like, this is brilliant.
Yeah.
And I also saw the benefits of like I've got a career-ending. I didn't know it was a career-ending injury at the time, but I've got I've snapped my knee in half here, but I'm working out. After my workout, I feel so much better than I did before. So it was
Hmm.
just that sort of, and that's how I really got into it. And then when I started playing in non-league football, I actually worked in recruitment for a little bit. So I did have an office job for, well, about 5 years in total, 5, 6 years. And again, that was a good experience because you deal with a lot of people, and you speak to a lot of people, different personalities. You understand different people, and how to speak to them, of course. But it wasn't for me. An office job wasn't for me. And then I did my certifications with personal training probably about 3 years ago now, and I absolutely love it. I just love
Hmm.
helping people, love understanding their problems, and changing people's lives as well. Essentially, it's brilliant.
Hmm.
And it's just, yeah, it's absolutely love it, mate. I've been doing it now, like I said, 3 years. It's almost like the mindset coaching of it as well. Obviously what I've
Yeah.
been through, taking that into people's everyday lives and their work and stuff.
Hmm.
It is so rewarding, mate. And yeah, I'm just blessed to be doing it, really.
You said earlier that you love that hard working lifestyle. Would you say that was a big factor and then trying to motivate other people to take on board that hard working lifestyle? Is that obviously a big significant factor if you wanted to become a personal trainer?
Yeah, I think it's obviously you do your certifications, your qualifications, and you pass on your knowledge to people. But you also, I think, you teach people from your own experiences. That's what I
Mm,
believe.
yeah.
And if my mom and dad have brought me up to always have a strong work ethic. I always have in anything in life. If you're gonna
Mm,
do something, make sure you do it right.
yeah.
That's the way I've been brought up. And I put 100% into everything I do.
Mm,
And even when I'm training clients now in the gym or I'm setting their online programs and stuff for them, I hold them accountable to it, and
mm,
I don't let them slack off. In a
yeah.
nice way, of course, because they need that.
Mm,
I'm there to get the most out of them, and in the nice way possible. When they leave me after a session, I want them to be thinking, I've had a good session there and getting the value from it. So that's what it's all about.
mm. And then just finally to finish off, what advice would you give to younger players who maybe find themselves in a similar situation to you with like a bad injury, a terrible injury, whether that's they want to stay in the sport or they want to pursue a career change? Just to finish off, what advice would you have for people in that situation?
That's a good question. That is a good question. So I was lucky, like I've got a really good family around myself. So I would say the biggest advice when you are going through a bit of a tough time with an injury or something, just utilize the people around you.
Hmm.
Like I said earlier, little things like the physio is great for me, the kit man, the chef. sometimes get those people around you. If you're having a tough day, just speak to people, you know,
Mm,
your family, you know, anyone, speak to them, be honest with them. And don't give up as well, you know, keep
yeah.
on going. Obviously, for me, my injury was one of the worst you can get, you know, so would have taken a lot for me to be back 100%. You know, I just didn't get the luck on my side, unfortunately.
Mm,
But keep going, try and get through it, speak to the people around you, keep them close.
yeah.
And yeah, just try and be resilient with it. Just be
Mm,
resilient. That's probably the main thing.
okay, yeah, that's great. Thank you very much. So, yeah,
Cheers,
we've got
one.
all our questions. Thanks very much. Start that recording.